What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of Let's Be Frank with your host and friendly neighborhood bull, Frank Mattis, brought to you by the Old City Sports Network. And boy, do we have a lot to get into today. The Eagles made a statement in Cincinnati, and I will discuss whether or not they're Super Bowl contenders and also give you a preview of the upcoming matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Philadelphia 76ers continue to disrespect their fan base by not being transparent about Joel, and the Flyers continue to get better. So let's talk about those Eagles. Um, you know, for the Jalen Hurts haters out there, for those who had doubts about Jalen Hurts, for those who've called for his benching, Sunday was not a good day for you. It was a horrible day for you. Um, y'all been very quiet these last couple days, let me tell you. Um, it was a rough Sunday for a lot of you Jalen Hurts fans. I mean, let's just look at the numbers. Jalen Hurts was 16 for 20. He went for 236 yards passing with one passing TD. He had 37 yards rushing and three touchdowns. He saw the middle of the field. He continuously um, gets better as a passer and makes better decisions, especially with the football. He doesn't turn the football over. This is three straight games where he's played mistake-free football. And yeah, this is what we paid for. And, I've told a lot of people on this podcast to slow it down a little bit with their criticisms of Jalen Hurts because it was overstated. It was a little bit too much saying that he's not the guy, he's not a franchise quarterback. When do we consider benching him? It just all this nonsense. And Sunday proved a lot of people wrong that when this guy attacks the middle of the field, when he's a true dual threat quarterback, throwing and running, and he doesn't turn the ball over and he goes through his progressions, this is a very, very tough team to beat. And he's a winner on top of it. The guy just wins. He just continues to stack up W's. And, you had a game the week before where he really wasn't a factor in the Giants game, but that's okay. Because there's going to be games where we need him to be a factor, like in the Cincinnati game, and he shut up a lot of people. Let me tell you, because there's a lot of people that are saying they're wrong, and there's a lot of people that just act like their criticism didn't exist, um, and it's satisfying to see, um, because the Jalen Hurts that we saw on Sunday was very reminiscent of the one we saw in 2022. A guy who can go through his progressions, a guy who can be accurate, a guy who can attack the middle of the field, a guy who um, is one of the most dominant dual threat quarterbacks in the National Football League and a top 10 quarterback. That's what we paid for. We didn't pay for the Jalen Hurts we saw in the Tampa Bay game. We paid for the Jalen Hurts we saw in 2022, and especially in that Super Bowl game. You take out the turnover, he was incredible. And that was the moment I'm like, okay, we have a quarterback for the next 5-10 years. Um, and he showed that, and he reminded people, um, and he kept the main thing, as he likes to say, um, because he had a purpose before anybody had an opinion. All right, that's enough with the whole Jalen Hurts isms, so to speak. But if you're a Jalen Hurts fan, you definitely took a victory lap on Sunday, and you should because he was spectacular. He played efficient football, and when he plays efficient football, and given his ability to win, he's a nightmare to stop. This team offensively is a nightmare to stop. When you factor in Devontae and AJ doing their thing, Devontae went 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. AJ Brown 5 catches, 84 yards. Grant Calcaterra continues to impress, continues to get better. Who told you about Grant Calcaterra? This guy. Um, yeah, and then when you factor in Dallas Goedert coming back, it's going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough offense to stop. Um, yeah, I like what I saw in terms of the passing game, and in particular Devontae Smith. I mean, talk about an absolute dog. I mean, This guy, I don't believe it or not, I don't think gets the credit he deserves because when you look at the Eagles, right, you think of Jalen Hurts. You think of now Saquon Barkley, given what he's been able to do and given that he's kind of, the new toy, so to speak. And then A.J. Brown, arguably already the best receiver in Eagles history, at least from a talent perspective. Sometimes people forget about Devontae Smith, and I don't. I every time that dude steps onto the football field, I am very appreciative of who he is, not just as a player, but as a person. He's a consummate teammate. Obviously he had a big game this week, but the week prior he only had a catch for -2 yards, and he didn't care because he's all about winning. I mean, I shouldn't say he doesn't care. He probably was like, all right, like -2 yards, like we got to do something about that. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about winning. Because he could have easily, because I don't think a lot of people realize with his new contract that he got, he could have easily, waited to see what CD Lamb was going to get, or Justin Jefferson, or Jalen Waddle, because he was up for a new contract, and he immediately got a deal done, and essentially took a team friendly deal. He could have easily made $30 million on the market, no question about it, because he is a true number one wide receiver in the NFL. Absolutely. Just because AJ Brown is there and he's doing his thing, let's not let's not kid ourselves. That Devontae Smith is a number one wide receiver, and he continuously proves it year in and year out. And he's a guy who plays beyond his height, beyond his weight, and a guy that can run pretty much any route, and he can go and get balls. He's just a tremendous player, a great football player, a great teammate, and a guy that when it's all said and done, we as Eagles fans are going to be like, damn, that Devontae Smith was special. And I don't think a lot of people appreciate him. And I know there's people that do, and there's diehard Smitty guys. Like I got a buddy Kev who's always been a Smitty guy. I've always been a Smitty guy. He's awesome, and because there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of mouths to feed with this team. We sometimes forget how great Devontae Smith is. I mean, he was a Heisman Trophy winner to boot as well. And when we drafted him at 10 and 20, I believe it was 10, in 2021, I knew they made the right pick, and I knew he was going to be a special player. And he continues to be a special player, making plays like he did on that touchdown pass to Jalen Hurts. Just remarkable stuff from him. AJ Brown does his thing. He. I don't think, because you look at him, you look at his um, freakish ability. I don't think people really appreciate his route running ability. He can run any route that there is, and he attacks the sidelines better than I've seen from people. Or almost as good as any receiver in the National Football League. The way he attacks the sidelines, whether it's out routes, whether it's comebacks, he's so hard to stop, and he gets such a huge cushion because he's such a polished route runner on top of his size and his speed. I mean, those two guys are night and day from James Thrash and Todd Pinkston, let me tell you. Us Eagles fans, whether it was Torrance Small or Charles Johnson, RIP, Freddie Mitchell, James Thrash, Todd Pinkston, Travis Fulgham, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. It's a really good time, to be an Eagles fan, in terms of seeing good wide receiver production. I mean, this is probably the best wide receiver production we've ever seen and probably ever will see, given the talent that these guys possess. AJ and Devontae are incredible, and they absolutely elevate Jalen Hurts for sure. But Jalen Hurts also deserves credit for making throwing good passes and throwing these guys open. So these guys are incredible. Like I mentioned, Grant Calcaterra continues to impress, and then when you factor in Dallas Goedert coming back, I think that they're going to be really tough tandem to stop. One of the better tight end tandems in the National Football League. So the passing game was great. Saquon Barkley, 22 carries for 108 yards, I believe. Where I think he's going to be at his absolute best is late in games. Obviously he can impose his will. He was tremendous on first down. in this game, which opens up the playbook, which um, puts defenses in a bind because you have such latitude to do whatever you want on second and short, third and short, and obviously with the tush push, um, you extend drives. But late in games, he's going to be impossible to stop. Um, and he just imposes his will on guys. There was a lot of talk this offseason, and I kind of get it too, because you saw production from guys like DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders. They've had career years behind this offensive line. That do we really need someone like Saquon Barkley? Well, given his skill set and given what he was able to do, despite playing for an absolute garbage organization like the New York Giants and being behind, with the exception of Andrew Thomas, their left tackle, an absolutely atrocious offensive line, and he was still able to get his. You put him in Philadelphia with their tremendous offensive line. And oh, by the way, Fred Johnson and Tyler Steen did really nice work filling in for Jordan Mailata and Mekhi Becton. Kudos to them. Jeff Stoutland continues to put guys in really good situations, and it looks like they didn't miss a beat. So, credit to them. But back to Saquon. When you factor in his potential when he's healthy, behind a tremendous offensive line. And oh, by the way, you have a dual threat quarterback that you have to account for as well. And then you have two wide receiver ones, um, a top 10 tight end in Goddard, an ascending player in Grant Calcaterra. It opens up so much for him. And, when he's running downhill late in games, good luck stopping that guy. And that's exactly what he did. And I think that's when he's at his most scariest. Um, to me, he's just a tremendous addition to this offense. And as good as DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders are, they're not in the same stratosphere as Saquon Barkley. And he continues to do his thing. And this offensive template that we got, this offensive showcase that we got on Sunday, from a passing to rushing standpoint, it's going to be tough for teams to beat. But what was even more impressive, let's talk about that defense, shall we? I mean, when you look at the opening drive, they gave up 5 straight third down conversions, and Jamar Chase is doing his thing, and Joe Burrow's in a rhythm. You're thinking it's going to be a long day. And, they were able to weather the storm early and dominate late in the game. And, to me, that is even more impressive than what the offense did, which was very impressive. Um, this is a secondary now with Cooper DeJean, who, by the way, is going to be a fan favorite for many years to come in the city. Expect that guy's jersey sales to skyrocket. Um, and then you have Kenyon Mitchell shutting guys down, thrown to the wolves since day one, and is showing out and continues to get better. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson had a really nice game. Reed Blankenship had a nice game. Sidney Brown is now back in the mix. And then Isaiah Rodgers, who stepped in and arguably played better than Darius Slay. He was key on that interception from CJ He broke up the pass intended for Jamar Chase. Tremendous play by him. And listen, if Darius Slay's, he's obviously getting older. He's become more injury prone. He's not as available. I have no problem with plugging in Isaiah Rodgers. No problem with that at all. And he's also a cheaper option. Next year, if he continues to build off of, getting more playing time and he continues to get better. I mean, I could see him starting for this team next year and then, getting rid of Darius Slay, because Darius Slay costs a lot of money. And Isaiah Rodgers is fairly cheap, but he's arguably a better player right now, and he played very well on Sunday. Going up against Jamar Chase, who's looking like the guy that we all thought he could be. Heading into that game, and especially on the first drive, he was able to make plays. So all of a sudden, which was once a terrible secondary, coming off of last year, who couldn't stop a nosebleed, you now have a solid secondary. And a secondary that I predicted was going to only get better. You know, it was going to be a slow start. There was going to be um, some growing pains, but it takes time when you're breaking in two rookies and a guy like Isaiah Rodgers who hasn't played in a while, and guys like um, Sidney Brown who's been injury prone. So once these guys get healthy and once these guys get acclimated into Vic Fangio's system, they're going to be a one of the best secondaries in all football, and they're playing like that. When you factor in what they were able to do to slow down Jamar Chase this past week, and then what they were able to do the previous week against Malik Neighbors, that is very encouraging. And you're going up against a guy in Brian Thomas Jr., who's also a guy that I think is going to be an elite wide receiver, and a guy from LSU. I mean, LSU, they just turn out receivers left and right, don't they? Um, it's good for them and their confidence to go up against, upper echelon receivers. And I think they're ready to answer the bell. Linebacker play is still solid, and Nakobe Dean, is proving to be a solid football player. Zach Ball's been a very positive upgrade at linebacker this year, a guy that they didn't have to break the bank for. Those guys made plays. And the pass rush was solid as well. This is a pass rush that has been very opportunistic these last couple weeks against weak offensive lines, and that's what you want to see. You want to see guys lick their chops, pin back their ears, and get to the quarterback. And and I can officially say this: Nolan Smith is a bust no more. Nolan Smith is a player and is a guy that's going to be a fixture in the Eagles defense for many years to come. For all the doubts that we've had about Nolan Smith, doubt no more, because this guy gets better week in and week out. And if Bryce Huff continues to be a non-factor, then Nolan Smith can pick up the slack. Kudos to him. Kudos to this defense. I mean, if you were to tell me that Joe Burrow, after that first drive, would only get 10 more points and put up 17 points total, I would have thought you were nuts. But here we are. Here we are with this Eagles team. And this leads me to the question, is this team a Super Bowl contender? The team that showed up in Cincinnati was absolutely a Super Bowl contender. This team absolutely can go places. When you get a balanced offensive attack, when you get a defense in all three phases, pass rush, linebacker play, cornerback play, when they all produce, this Eagles team is a tough team to beat. And I know the Washington Commanders are on top of the NFC East. And trust me, Jaden Daniels keeps me up at night. It's not Patrick Mahomes. It's not Lamar Jackson. Jackson. I said his name right. Sorry. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. They don't scare me like Jaden Daniels does, mainly because he's in our division and what he's been able to do early on in the year. And he absolutely is an MVP candidate. I mean, he's just completely changed the fortunes of the Washington Commanders, and the main catalyst as to why they've been successful. Obviously, the Hail Mary play was spectacular from him. But I think this Eagles team can absolutely take care of business against the Commanders. And, when you factor in that they have more talent, when they have more experience, I'm ready for this team. And I know we're playing them a couple weeks from now. That Thursday night game is going to be big. And I honestly believe this. I think the Eagles-Commanders rivalry is about to take off and be one of the best rivalries in all football. Because when you have a team like the Eagles, who are always going to look to improve their team, and if they can keep these guys healthy and intact for many years to come, and this defense can get better, and you go up against a guy like Jaden Daniels, and you factor in Scary Terry and what that coaching staff's been able to do, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun rivalry watching those and fun games watching those two teams go at it. Because this isn't your Daniel Snyder Commanders. This is a Commanders team that's for real and are the team to beat in the NFC East for sure, because the Cowboys are an absolute mess and the Giants are a disgrace to football. Um, the Washington Commanders Eagles rivalry is about to kick up into the next year, and it's interesting because in the early 2000s, the Eagles Giants rivalry was the biggest, and then the late 2000s to 2010s it was the Eagles Cowboys, and now it looks like the 2020s are going to be dominated with the Eagles and Commanders. Both teams have bright futures. Both teams are going to be the teams to beat in this division, and I'm all for it. Bring on the Commanders. I really believe that the rivalry um, will be the best it has ever been in the next couple of years. Um, but looking forward, and speaking of looking forward, let's look at the Jaguars, who are currently sitting. I believe they're 2-6, 2-5. 2-6. Um, Not a great team. A team that the Eagles should absolutely beat handedly. When you look at, I mean, offensively, they're not terrible. They're 16th both in passing and rushing per game, and 21st in points per game, which is a little is more on the below average side. But their rushing and passing attack as a whole, and despite being without Travis Etienne, is pretty middle of the road, pretty decent. They've had injuries at wide receiver with Christian Kirk, so that's nothing to um, look past. Trevor Lawrence is playing a little bit better, and like I mentioned before, Brian Thomas Jr. is a really good player. But seeing what I've seen from this Eagles defense in the secondary the last couple weeks, I think they're more than capable of slowing him down. But defensively, this is where they're not so good. They're 29th in yards. They're 31st in passing. They're ninth in stopping the run. Um, but I don't think they've faced a team like the Eagles in terms of their offensive line and Saquon Barkley, and then 29th in points allowed. So we should be able to impose their will there. The Eagles should win pretty comfortably here. They're a 7.5 point favorite, I believe. I think that hopefully this could be the game. If there was one negative about, um, other than the opening drive where they just had 5 straight third down conversions in the Cincinnati game, still in another game, without a first quarter point. I think they can do it this week, given uh, the defense that they're going up against. I think they can impose their will. I think that this is going to be a dominant win. Let's say 38-10 Eagles. I think they're playing with momentum, and they're wearing Kelly Green, so they should show out. They're undefeated when they wear Kelly Green, and they played their best football when they wear Kelly Green. So hopefully that will bring them good luck. So I feel good about this team. I feel good about the direction that they're going, and I think that they should absolutely take care of business against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But a team that I am not so happy with are the Sixers. I have never seen a team disrespect their fan base in Philadelphia more than the Sixers. I know there's 4 teams, but I mean, you could argue the Flyers over the last couple of years. A lot of people have called, for ownership to sell the team and whatnot. But if there's one thing that really pisses me off as a fan, is the lack of transparency. And at least with the Sixers in the early process days with Sam Hinkie, they flat out said, "Trust the process. We're in the business of acquiring assets to build a better future." And initially, I wasn't on board with that because I want a winning product. I want to see competent, solid basketball. I don't, necessarily want to see Ish Smith as our best player and Tony Roten as our best player. I mean, Jesus Christ, those were some rough days, weren't they? Um, but I knew what they were going for. I knew that they were in it for the long haul, and they were honest about it, and I can at least accept that. What we're getting from this organization now is anything but that. What we're getting now is a lack of transparency and a spit in the face of Sixers fans. And I'm sick and tired of it. And it's extremely hard to cheer for this team and root for this team. And oh, by the way, the revenge of Tobias Harris happened last night as they lost to the 0-4 friggin' Detroit Pistons for heaven's sake. Just another um, insult to injury given the state of affairs with the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, listen, if you're not happy with Joel Embiid's health, if you're concerned about Joel Embiid's health, just say it. Just come out and be like, listen, Joel probably can play, but given where we want to go as an organization, given where we want to go in the postseason and go to the NBA championship and get over that hump, we feel it's in the best interest of the team to shut down Joel Embiid for the first 10 to 15 games. It's annoying. You question whether or not, why they signed this guy to all that money if he can't play early on in the season, and you have to monitor his health and you know, have, the most extreme element of load management, but at least they're being transparent. But the fact that they're jerking this fan base around it is maddening, and I'm sick and effing tired of it because this is a very hard team to cheer for. Because it's one thing if you're honest with the fan base, it's a whole nother thing when you're not being transparent and you're losing basketball games. And this was a team that, or a fan base rather, that was very much looking forward to this season. You add Paul George, you see Joel Embiid win a gold medal, you think to yourself, oh, Joel Embiid, he's around guys who can win, and that's going to do great things for the long haul. And Tyrese Maxey continues to get better, and Nick Nurse, 1 year under his belt, he's going to get the most out of these guys and understand their strengths and weaknesses, and we can take off. No, because this organization is not transparent. This organization refuses to be transparent with us, and it's annoying. And I'm telling you, Sixers fatigue is a real thing. I've been stressing this on this podcast week after week. People are sick and tired of it. I have friends that defend the Sixers at nauseum. Basically, we're like, I can't defend this anymore because you can't defend this anymore. Again, like, it's annoying that we have to, you know, deal with Joel, in this, in terms of the injuries and the fact that we're still having this conversation. But if they were just to come out and be like, listen, we're not 100% sold on where Joel Embiid is in terms of his health, and we want to make sure that he's at 100%, and we want to make sure that when it comes to the end of the season, there's no excuses. It's all go. And we believe in the best interest of the Philadelphia 76ers to shut down Joel Embiid for the first 10 to 15 games. If they were to come out and do that, I would have been annoyed. And it's like, oh, here we go with Joel's health again. But at least there's an end game. At least there's a reason. And there's a goal. And there's a method to this madness. There's none of that. And you got Nick Nurse, having to punt on questions. And I don't blame him. Like, what's he supposed to do? If this doesn't work, Daryl Morey is absolutely going to be fired by year's end. No question about it. Like, this can't go on. Like, this, like, be honest. Be honest. Like, clearly Joel Embiid's not 100%. And then with the Paul George thing, look, like, it was something that happened during training camp and something that we're going to have to deal with. I mean, that's more cut and dry, but this Joel Embiid situation is effing annoying. And I would appreciate if this organization would be transparent with their fan base, because I'm having a really hard time investing into this team. And if you're a fan, why would you want to buy tickets when you don't even know who's going to be playing tonight? Like, why? I mean, you want to alienate your fan base? Keep doing this. Keep jerking us around and not being transparent. It's annoying. It's absolutely annoying. And again, Sixers fatigue is for real. And people are not caring about this team, not as invested as they once were. And if you're going to continuously lie to the fan base and not be transparent, and I know I sound like a broken record with that word, but it's the perfect word to describe it. You're going to lose his fan base. And it's a real shame because this is a fan base that does love this team, but they can only take so much of this BS and these games. And quite frankly, we're all sick and tired of it. Um, so yeah, that's it on the Sixers. Before I talk about the Flyers, I want to let you guys know about Decals by Aaron. If you are a Delco aficionado, if you are somebody who eats, sleeps, and breathes Delco and want to support Delco by wearing Delco merch, Decals by Aaron is the place to go. You can go to their Facebook page at facebook.com/decals by Aaron or go to decalsbyaaron.com. Let them know that your boy Frank sent you. Again, if you want the top notch Delco merchandise, if you want to show your Delco pride, Decals by Aaron will most certainly hook you up there. And lastly, let's talk about the Flyers. I'm seeing improvement. I'm seeing improvement. I'm seeing a team that is playing with a sense of urgency, a team that will be aggressive, a team that is getting better, and it's good to see. You know, they're 2-1 in the last 3 games. Obviously, Sean Couturier had the hat trick last Saturday against the Wild. Very impressive stuff by him, by our captain. And then even in their loss um, to the Canadians, the 4-3 loss to the Canadians, they showed a lot of fight in that game and a little bit more sense of urgency, unlike the first couple games. And then they shut out the Boston Bruins 2-0. They're in their last game, and yeah, you're starting to see improvements. Matvey Michkov, gets better. Travis Sanheim is proving to be one of the better offensive defensemen in all of the NHL. Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny have been impressive. So I feel a lot better about the Flyers. I really do. I like where this team's headed. I was very critical early on, mainly because of the expectations of, Mitchkov mania, the core that they had, and given what John Tortorella has done in year 3 and all of his stops as the head coach, he's been able to turn around in year 3. And, listen, I mean, they, like I said, early on or before, this was a tough road stand that they started out with on the West Coast, going against some good teams. So that probably played a factor in their lack of success early on, but they're starting to find their niche and find their groove. And it's really good to see. They're starting to put more pucks on net. They're flying around and clean some things up on their power play. And if they continue to get better and continue to be aggressive and could just put pucks on net and good things will happen. And it's good to see that they're starting to turn the corner here. So yeah, the Flyers look impressive. And if you want, the best Flyers coverage, check out my boys at Flyers Alley for with Old City Sports. Those guys are the best, and they will give you the best intel in regards to the Flyers. So that will conclude episode 12.